What's going on, my fellow wealth creators? Matty Ice here. We're in the Dominican Republic. I'm in the Dominican Republic again for the Life 180 Mastermind Retreat. Back here with my very good friend Jeff Kamke from Wealth Energetics. And we're doing our thing here in the DR. We love creating content. Yep. And since we're back in the DR, we've got to do it, man. And we're learning a lot. And we've been talking a lot about what we've been up to since the last retreat, all the things that we're working on. And we talked about that in another video, but today, in this video, we wanted to talk a little bit about actually an article that you and I were discussing a little bit earlier that I found. And I actually found it from a video listening to Garrett Gunderson. He was reading like a different version of it, and I looked up a more recent version of it, and it was an article about, it was from Yahoo Finance, which is super reputable, right? We're not going to go there. But anyways, not all their stuff is bad. I'm just, I'm being cheeky. But it was talking about how the number of 401K millionaires in America is soaring, okay? Mm-hmm. That's literally the word they use in the headline. And when you see that, it's kind of clickbaity. It definitely grabs your attention. Things must be doing good. Stock market must be doing good. 401K must be, it's doing what it's supposed to, right? That's initially what you think. Except when you actually read the article and look at the numbers, it says the complete opposite. And this is what's really frustrating to me about this kind of stuff is the misleading nature of the marketing and the presentation of these different products. I talk a lot about IUL. I have so much frustration around that. But it gives this false sense of security that this financial product is going to solve all of my problems. And when you see that too, a lot of the times it doesn't encourage you to continue reading and continuing to do your own research. You just kind of take it at face value, and you end up making these major financial decisions without all the information. Like, is this actually the right thing for me? And so here's what's crazy, Jeff, all right? In the article, and actually, guys, I will link this down below as well, so you can check this out and verify it for yourself. So here's where the soaring numbers come from, all right? So it said in the most recent quarter compared to last year, I think it was, the number of 401k millionaires has increased by 20%. That's a big number, right? Yep. Except the reason that number is so big is because the actual number of people that have done it is pretty small, comparatively speaking. So it was 400, according to this article, written in February this year, so a little old, but recent enough. It said that there are now 422,000 401k millionaires, meaning people who own 401ks have reached that $1 million value. That's kind of the golden number that we want to reach with our 401k, right? It's the number you hear about all the time. And this is based on the tax qualified plans managed by Fidelity, okay? But then when you actually continue reading the article, you realize that Fidelity has 45 million tax qualified plans under management, including 401ks, IRAs, and there were some numbers about IRAs as well. But even when you combine the 401ks and IRAs, the percentage number of people who have tax qualified plans reaching the millionaire mark was a fraction of 1%. It was 0.001% of all the tax qualified plans under Fidelity's management have reached that $1 million mark. To me, that is a massive failure because 401k has been around for a little while now. Yeah. Okay? And obviously this is probably not counting maybe like people who are maybe withdrawing. Maybe it does. I would have to verify that. So obviously that's going to have an impact on the account value as well. But here's my point. If the 401k, which is promoted to be this amazing financial product that's going to solve our retirement problems, and you got to buy term and invest the difference. You want to max out your 401k as best as possible. We got to reach that $1 million mark, even though $1 million is not going to be very much money in the next couple of decades, right? So that's not even going to be enough. But if it's so great, shouldn't that percentage number of the 45 million tax qualified plans under just one company, it should be way more than a fraction of 1%. It should be 5%, 10%, like that. If it's so great, why are the numbers not better? Because, see, here's the thing, guys. the numbers say something totally different when you actually look into it. And so I want to get your thoughts on that really quick, and then I want to talk about like the main point that I got from this, because I'm not trying to necessarily attack 401k, and this is not financial advice. I'm not saying to not do your put money into a 401k, but it's to start to rethink these financial products that we've been told are these miracle products that are going to solve all of our problems.
Yep.
You might want to rethink that a little bit and actually look at the numbers and see if this is actually going to help you reach your goal. So what are your thoughts on that? And we'll continue from there.
Yeah. So I think, one of the things that came up is you're doing that, like, why a 20% increase? Well, how much did the markets go up in the last year? I think they've gone up around 15 or so percent, 20%. So just by the 1 year increase in the markets could get you a 20% increase in, because if there's enough people, you got 45 million people, there's going to be a percentage of them that are going to have an account balance that are close to 1 million.
Sure.
So then when the market does well in 1 year, it's going to push that number up and over about the percentage that the market went up. So, okay, that's just a representation of the market being up in a year. So we could do this again in another year. If the markets were down, guess what? We could write a headline: the number of 401k millionaires has crashed this year. It's down 10% because that's what the market went down.
Right.
So, like, we're really not showing a true representation of the power of the product. We're just basically showing what the product is invested in did well, and that pushed enough people up over a certain threshold to create a good headline.
Right.
And so beyond that, the whole idea that you're showing here is the low percentage and success rate of the financial vehicle of a 401k overall can be so low. And we were talking about it before we started recording. There's a lot of people that are putting a lot of money into this, and it's still not enough.
Right.
And I've got a relative that saves very, very, very well, and they're still right at about that $1 million threshold, I believe, in their overall portfolio. And to be able to get to that level, it takes a lot of discipline or a very high income.
Yep.
One of the two.
Absolutely.
And if you look at somebody that's a really good saver that's devoting a lot of their income towards retirement, I mean, some people that are really good savers devote 10, 20, even 30% of their income towards their retirement, towards their investments, because they're really, smart about their money. But did they accomplish the $1 million because of the performance of the product, the 401k, or did they get there because of their own habits?
It's a great point.
And so then if they had good habits, then we have to back up and say, okay, if they had really good habits, of all the money they put away, did they invest in the most efficient vehicle? That if they would have done something different, could they have had $1.5 million or 2 million instead of just $1 million being in the 401k? And a lot of that goes back to who that person is. If they're a W-2 employee, that's probably one of the better vehicles. Now you could argue that you might want to do like a Roth 401k or a Roth IRA where you're putting in after-tax dollars in there, so you're taking the future variable of what taxes are going to be come withdrawing, come income, come distribution time. That's an argument that, a lot of gurus in our industry that, we side with a lot of the things that they say, like David McKnight. I know he's a big one about getting yourself out of the tax environment.
Right.
And he has a book called, just blanked on me.
Power of Zero?
Yeah, Power of Zero, and about being in the 0% tax bracket, which means when you get to retirement, you have none of your money to where you're going to have to pay taxes on it. You've done all of that leading up to retirement. And so there's just different strategies and different tools to help you get there. So, I guess that's where my thought process goes is, okay, if they're a 401 or a W-2 person, that's probably a decent product to do it. But if they're an entrepreneur, a business owner, an outside of the box thinker, a libertarian, somebody like that that's probably wanting to do things differently and go against the grain. And, there's somebody here at the mastermind this weekend that she was saying that her kind of theme to her life is, fucking the system, pardon my French, but, there's a lot of people like that want to do things differently because they see the limitations and the drawbacks and the manipulation and the marketing and a lot of the things.
And it doesn't allow them to be their greatest asset in their life as well.
Right.
They're locking up their money in this product that it's very restrictive.
Right. And for that type of a client, they're probably wanting to increase their income.
Right.
And that's where, before we went on, we were talking about that Grant Cardone's a big proponent of this, talking about, you may have debt but most people have an income problem, not a debt problem.
Right.
Most people don't make enough money, and just
Right.
in the last few years, how inflation has gone up so much, and the cost of living, the cost of everyday products has gone up so much. I mean, right now, if you haven't increased your income in the last 5 years by, 50% probably, you're screwed.
Yeah, you're hurting.
You're really cutting it close and probably struggling. So you have to look at, okay, if I want to be, having my money set aside for retirement, I'm probably gonna have to invest in myself and learn ways that I can become a more valuable asset in my company. If I'm a W-2, work up the corporate ladder, learn skills that I can, take what I've already got for experience and maybe qualifications and go to a different company or do something different where I can increase my income rather significantly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's within your control. You can do that. You can take courses. You can take the ambition and figure that out and get to that point. But if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, maybe the best investment isn't directly into a 401k. It's into yourself and doing. I think we've probably both done content on this before, either collectively or I know I've done some individual where, if you just go and you hire a really good mentor, a really good business coach, or a really good real estate investing program or something that you could in the next year or two think about doubling your income or increasing your income by 50% or 200% or 300%. It's possible to do.
Yeah.
To be able to do that.
Absolutely.
And by doing that then can create the cash flow to be able to put into the right, financial strategy that can then get you there, and that can get you beyond that $1 million. Because when we reverse engineer the $1 million back, and we've talked about this in numerous videos, but it's so relevant to always bring it up because that $1 million is like this just ultimate. You just arrived if you hit $1 million, but then okay, when it comes to distribution time, if I'm going to take income from that, that's only giving me about $40,000 with a 4% safe withdrawal rate.
Yep.
Which that is even being called into question in the latest research.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually more like a 3 or a 2% safe withdrawal rate.
Yep.
So that $1 million portfolio, let's just say inflation hasn't run rampant and that $1 million is still going to spend really well. And let's say it's a 4% safe withdrawal rate. That's 40 grand pre-tax. So your after taxes are probably 30 grand, 25 grand, somewhere in there, depending on what state you live in and where taxes are at that time. That's not even enough to live on. I don't know any state, maybe Kentucky or Tennessee, you could live on that.
Yeah.
Or maybe Wyoming or some of the, kind
the
of.
list is getting smaller.
Yeah, but you're not going to live in California on that. You're not going to live
Definitely
in New York
not.
on that. You're not going to live in Michigan, where I live. You're not going to live in a lot of the main states, probably Florida, where you're at. I know cost of living is huge down there with no places left to live, at least in certain areas. So, you got to really look at what am I doing with my money? Is where I'm putting it getting me the best results? Is that in alignment with who I am and what I want to accomplish with my money? And you just got to really think about, like a headline like that, really dissect it, really think it through. And is the accomplishment of the 401k based on the power of the product, or is it based on a very small percentage of people that know how to put money away and just kind of by accident they fell into a success? And that's why that percentage is so low of the 45 million, and only less than 1% have actually hit some sort of a successful benchmark when it comes to investing.
So there's a couple of things there, and that's kind of the main point that I wanted to talk about with this article and these numbers. And also I want to point this out because I can see this potentially coming up in the comments where, well, the reason that number is so low is because it takes 20, 30 years of contributing to a 401k and getting that growth to get to the millionaire status, and you're not segmenting the people who maybe just started a 401k or they're only 10 years into it. No, I totally get that.
Yep.
I still think the number should be a heck of a lot more.
I would think.
And I've also seen, I will link this down below too, guys. Actually, I think I've done a video on this already about the average 401k balance by age bracket, by age range. And 65 and up, the average, the last time I checked, was $274,000. That was the average 401k balance at 65 and older. That's very far from $1 million. Now, that's an average, so there were people in that range, in that age range, that had $1 million or whatever in their 401k, and I'm happy it worked out for them. Okay, but there's a couple things to consider here when it comes to talking about these 401k millionaires, right? We're not taking into account the contribution aspect of that $1 million of the $1 million account value, right? So, like you said earlier, is it actually the performance of the financial product itself, or were these people just able to contribute a lot more than your average person?
Right.
The amount that you're supposed to commit every single year to your 401k in order to reach that $1 million mark. And here's why I say that. There's a very big difference in reaching, or there's a very big difference in account value that you're going to get to when you're contributing $100 a month into a 401k versus $1,000 a month or $1,500, whatever it is, whatever your max is. You're going to have a very, very significant difference there. Okay, now I'm happy for the people that reach that $1 million mark. That's great. Okay, but that's not an indication or an accurate representation to say that this is a really good financial product for everybody,
Right.
Especially not knowing the situation, the financial situation that people are in as far as like what their income and expenses are, right? Because see, this is what I tell people, even about when I'm having a conversation with somebody about infinite banking, which you guys know, I'm a huge fan of. It's been a game changer in my life. It is an excellent strategy for the right person, but it's absolutely not for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And who it's not for, just one example, is if you're not able to capitalize your banking system, if you're not able to fund the policy with enough money, you're not really going to be able to take advantage, take full advantage of the actual infinite banking concept. So that's why when I see people setting up policies with like $100 or $200 a month, while I commend you for taking action and taking that step, and of course there's a death benefit, and there might be some situations where that makes sense. Maybe they're doing like a debt consolidation strategy. That could be it. I don't really consider that infinite banking, but that's just me. But I would challenge people to say, listen, I think that $100, $200 a month that you're contributing to whatever financial product it is, if it's a 401k or an infinite banking policy, that's not enough. It's not going to move the needle enough. Right. Like you could get that magical 12% every single year that Dave Ramsey talks about all the time. You could get that, but on how much money are you getting that 12% every single year? Because if it's only $1,000 in your account and you get a 12% return, you get a 20% return. That's a good return, but that's not a lot of money because you didn't capitalize the financial product with enough money, right? So I challenge people that if you're only able to put and lock up in this case with a 401k $100, $200 a month, in my opinion, this is not financial advice, it makes more sense to me to reinvest that money back into yourself first. Maybe not do the investing yet. I need to invest in myself first so that I can increase my income. I can double my income over the next 12 to 18 months, whether it's starting a side business, whether it's becoming more proficient and better at your job. You get promoted, you learn negotiation skills, I don't care what it is, but you reinvest that money back into yourself to increase your income. Once you do that, and you're able to get to the point where you can put $1,000 a month into your 401k, now that starts to make a little bit more sense to me because we're getting those good returns on a higher amount of money that's really going to move the needle a lot more and increase the probability of you getting to that $1 million mark. I think the problem is a lot of people are not able to put $1,000 a month or however much it is. Like they can't max out the 401k and put enough in to really move the needle. And that's where I have a big problem with this, is because it's that one size fits all approach that the financial industry has. Is like we're lepers. Like we're considered lepers when it comes to this stuff because I do things completely different. I want nothing to do really with any traditional type of like the 401ks and IRAs. And again, it's the right product for some people. That's great, but it's definitely not a one size fits all product. None of them are. And I just think to tell everybody like you're kind of weird if you don't have a 401k. Right, or a 529 plan for college and an HSA and like all these like tax qualified plans. You're kind of like the outsider if you don't do that.
Yeah, you're a weirdo. Right,
but is that the right stuff for you? And if it's not, I don't care if I'm a weirdo or not. I want to do what's best for me. So I'll wrap up that point by saying that just giving you guys something to think about. If you're only able to contribute a small amount of money, I would say invest it in yourself first, increase your income. That way you're able to save more money into whatever financial product you want, and you're going to move the needle a lot more. That was the biggest takeaway that I got from that article, was that the people that did reach that millionaire or that $1 million account value likely contributed way more than everybody else, and that's why they got there. It's not that, I mean, we're in the greatest bull run of our time. It's not going to last forever, obviously, so they benefited from that. Is that going to continue, guys? I don't think so. We'll see. But the bottom line is they probably contributed a lot more. That makes a very big difference.
Right.
And I don't recall them talking about that in the article, but it needs to be pointed out, because if you're not able to contribute enough, reinvest it back in yourself, and then come up with a game plan for that. That's my thoughts on that. What do you think?
Yeah, a couple things that come to mind is we're down here in the Dominican. We're working on a lot of things with our business, and I was just before we went live, I was working on some notes and outlines for some content I'm going to be producing down here. And one of those things that I talked about or was writing down that's relevant to this is, I see a lot of times where people are trying to put away money into their 401k, but then they're trying to get that 10%, 12% rate of return in the markets, but they're also holding credit card debt of 20, 25,
Right.
30% interest.
Right.
And so a lot of times we have to look at the efficiency of our overall financial picture.
Right.
And where can we free up money? So if we're paying 20% interest on credit cards and we're holding a large balance, and you're trying to contribute to gain 10%, but you're losing 20%,
Right. That doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make any
That doesn't
sense.
make
And
sense.
so a lot of times, I think part of the reason people have a struggle and why the numbers are what they were from that article with people that aren't at that $1 million level, and it looks like a failured product. And obviously there's a point where it falls back to people. People aren't disciplined enough. People
Right.
don't make enough. They'd rather have an $80,000 SUV than an $800,000 401k balance. It's discipline. It's the American lifestyle. It gets us off course. There's obviously other factors in play here. It's not like the only reason is because 401ks suck, but part of it, I think, can be where people would have more money to put towards things if they had better financial education.
Sure.
And that
better
right there
financial
alone,
habits.
yes. And if they would just pay off a 20% credit card, that's a 20% rate of return instantly when you pay that off.
And now how much does that free up in your cash flow that you can now put
Exactly.
right back into your 401k if you wanted to?
Exactly. So there's that piece of it. And then beyond that is other areas where you can become more efficient with your finances and looking for ways to free it up. And it's not just like Dave says, stop going to Starbucks and stop eating out. Like, okay, that's fine to a point. And there's some people that probably eat out way too much and it's bad for the health. And it's,
But you can't pinch pennies to
Right.
to become wealthy. Like,
so there's
it can help, but
there's other things that you can do to look at your finances and free up more cash flow.
Right.
And there's tax strategies that can be done to
Yep.
free up more cash flow. And I always go back to the old adage of a penny saved is a penny earned. Okay, so if that works for a penny, well, if $100 saved is $100 earned, $1,000 saved is $1,000 earned.
Yep.
Okay, if I'm trying to earn all this money through growth in my financial products, my 401ks, well, what can I do to save $1,000 a year, $5,000 a year through looking at the different areas that you can look at, whether it's taxes and insurance and fees on your investment accounts, and there's many areas that you can look at that we can help you with if you need help with that to free up cash flow. So if you can free up $5,000 in a year just off of efficiency, it doesn't mean you're cutting out anything. It just means getting more efficient with the money that's already flowing through your hands.
Yep.
What type of rate of return is that equivalent to? Well, if being conservative, it's a 5% rate of return. You need, I'm thinking, blanking on the math off the top of my head, that'd be what? You need $100,000 at
Yes.
5%
Yeah.
to get you that. So it means you'd have to have $100,000 somewhere at a 5% rate of return to give you $5,000 in your pocket or $5,000 of growth.
Yep.
When you could do the same thing with not needing that $100,000, you could just do it through savings. So that's a big thing, because if you could free up
Huge.
$5,000 a year and put it into a 401k, that's significant, right?
That can be a game changer.
Yeah,
Huge.
And that doesn't even mean what we've already said, going and increasing your income. That's just
Yep.
off of what you're already earning and what's already flowing through your hands, making it go further, being more, smart about all that.
Right.
And what could that ripple effect then have for 10 or 20 or 30 years
Yep.
just by doing that alone? So those are some key considerations that, you don't hear a lot from traditional finance. I don't know if there's a Yahoo Finance article on what we just talked about. Those couple points I just made.
Seen it.
That's the kind of stuff that we do differently, that we think about it differently, we look at it differently. We can help you at a deeper level than just, don't go to Starbucks, put a bunch of money in your 401k, and the product alone will be your savior.
Right.
The rate of return, that's all you need to know about. the big pile of money is going to be everything that you ever need. It's going to be your retirement. It's going to be your long-term care. It's going to provide your death benefit. That's why you don't need whole life insurance or death benefit. Those are the fallacies that when you really get into it and question things and look at, is this the most efficient use of these dollars? Most of the time you arrive at, no, those aren't the most efficient routes to do things with my money.
Right.
I can make them go further in other ways, and those ways are usually outside the box, other than what the traditional financial world teaches you, because they're very vested in a very particular system that there's a lot of incentivization, there's a lot of marketing around that. There's a lot. It's a lot like the medical industry, where if you have been trained in a certain way, for whatever reason, we don't question what we've been trained in. And so if you think that buy term and invest the difference is the way to go, a very small percentage of agents are ever going to challenge that. If you believe that the stock market's the only way to invest, I mean, you're just going to look for all the evidence that supports that. Yeah. That's what you're going to continue to tell all your clients to do, and you're going to build your career on that. And then a lot of people, a lot of advisors, a lot of guys, even in our profession, that they do something a certain way. If they've been selling IULs for a few years and then they see the light, there's this moral hazard that comes into play of, do I admit to my client base that I maybe didn't know all that I thought I knew, and I've got to pivot, and maybe I've found a better way that's better for my clients, but I can't really do that because I'm making such a good living, and I've got my kids in private school, I'm eating organic food, and I'm driving a Lexus, and there's all these little things that play into how you, the end user, the client, and the results of your finances can be over the course of your lifetime, just based on some outside factors that aren't the rate of return, aren't the market. Right. It's these other things that have an impact on it. And so you really, and I know Matt always drives this point home, you got to do your research. You got to think about this stuff, and you've got to take responsibility for your own thoughts, your own beliefs around this stuff, and learning different ways of doing finances, different strategies to find out what makes sense for you. We were talking at dinner tonight about fasting, and that you found a really great way that works for you to not eat breakfast and to eat your 2 meals later in the day and fast for 16 to 18 hours. And I was conversing that, saying, for me, I found that I like it when I eat breakfast. And you have to do the same thing with finances. You have to find what works for you in your situation. And there's people like us that can help guide you in that. We're not so closed-minded it has to be a certain way because that's the way we were trained, or that's what our upline taught us, or that's the book that we read, and we haven't learned anything since, and we're never going to expand on what we've been taught in the beginning.
God forbid you evolve a little bit.
Exactly.
And learn new things.
Exactly. So those are some of the things that I think separate us in what we're doing here that can give you a better predictable result when it comes to finances, and help you make sure that what you're doing is in alignment with what you want for a result, and that you're doing the most with the money that you've got.
And I think it comes down to the term you use all the time, which I love, taking a holistic approach. Right. I love that word, a holistic approach to your personal finances. I mean, you should really take a holistic approach to every aspect of your life, as opposed to, again, that one-size-fits-all financial product or health product or pill that's going to save this or save my marriage, whatever, right? And that it comes down to opening up the mind, stepping outside of the box here, all right? Maybe everything that's being said here by mainstream media, Wall Street, financial advisors, whatever, they're not all bad, but maybe there's something else that might actually be much better for me versus, okay, this is what everybody's doing, this is what I was told to do, right? That illustration looks really good. I'm going to earn 8-9% a year. Yeah, sign me up, whatever, right? And I think what happens is people get so fixated on the product itself, and that product is going to solve all their problems, versus taking a holistic approach by doing your own research and seeing what else is out there, coming up with a custom plan specific to your financial situation, your goals, and evaluating where you're at right now. Like, is this the best thing for me to do? You mentioned it earlier, should I be putting money into my 401k right now when I'm paying 25% on my credit card debt right now? Maybe we should allocate the majority of our resources right now to fixing that problem first, because it doesn't make sense to make that, I don't want to say fictional, because there's some years where it does 12%, but that 12% average rate of return, I can't stand it. But it doesn't make sense. Like, let's say I do get that every year. It doesn't make sense to earn 12% if I'm paying 25% on credit cards. Right. That's pretty basic stuff, right there. We gotta build a really strong foundation first. Get our finances organized. Get things fixed. Right. Make sure we're not spending more money than we're earning. Right. Make sure we don't have this outstanding credit card debt. We're paying really high interest on stuff when we're trying to earn returns over here. No, let's get a return on this first. This credit card debts or whatever, and now we have more resources that we can invest back into ourselves first. That's usually the argument I make. Let's learn how to increase our income, and now we can utilize different financial products as opposed to relying on one product that people say is going to solve all my problems, make me a millionaire at age 65 or whatever. And the problem with that is the data does not support it. The numbers don't support that actually happening unless you can contribute a specific amount of money to it. So if you can't do that, and the finances aren't in order, you're not taking a holistic approach to this. To me, it's the equivalent of burying your head in the sand or crossing your fingers, hoping that this is going to work out, and it's going to be too late. By the time you start thinking about it, like, okay, I'm ready to start the distribution phase. I've got. I only have a couple $100,000 or a few $100,000. I thought I was supposed to have $1 million, from this amazing financial product. And a lot of the times, it's too late to do something about it. That's why you need to start now. Start asking questions now. Start doing your research on these different things now, and making sure that you're doing things with your money that are in alignment with your goals, your values, what you're trying to accomplish. Because a lot of times it doesn't turn out very well. I mean, it's no coincidence that, there's a lot of people that are forced out of retirement every single year, even with the 401k, even with their Social Security. Like, people are forced back into the workforce and out of retirements all the time. Why is that? If we have this amazing financial product that's supposed to solve all of our problems and give us these great golden years, what is happening? Well, what's happening is we're putting too much faith in one specific financial product that might not be a good fit for everybody, right? It's definitely not a good fit for me. I'm not a fan of the 401k at all. That doesn't mean it's bad, and I'm not knocking it. It's just, let's ask some questions here. Let's do our research and not take everything that's said to us by mainstream media and government, Wall Street, and these professionals with their fancy degrees and stuff like that. Not knocking that, but still, like, we still need to question that stuff. Right, and when we don't, I think that's when we get into trouble. We make decisions that might not be in our best interest, and because we're just listening to what people are saying instead of doing our own research. That's my biggest thing about this stuff.
Yeah, and I think when we say do your own research and look into this stuff, I think one of the things that I found valuable as a professional in this industry is going to the opposite side of the fence and listening to those people and watching podcasts, reading books of people that promote maybe an opposing viewpoint. And so for a consumer, that's good research for you to do.
Very good.
Understand different viewpoints, different perspectives. Read the Buy Term and Invest the Difference. Read about infinite banking. Read about Roth IRAs. Read about this stuff and read about annuities. Figure out these different angles, and you will find a certain guru or a certain set of principles that align with you. Like, man, I really like what this guy is saying. And it might not be Matt and I. It might be somebody else, and that's totally fine. But we really, truly want you to find what makes you, happy and what's going to work the best for you that you feel good about.
Yep.
But you can only arrive at that when you take ownership, when you step up. And I know we live in a country in America where that whole mindset is being undermined continually. Where don't take responsibility, don't take ownership, don't put things in your control, don't step up and take charge. It's handing it over to somebody else.
Yep.
It's putting your power somewhere else away from you that's going to hopefully solve your problems, and that the 401k and finance is usually that piece.
Right. Exactly.
And I've talked to plenty of people over the years that we don't take on as clients because they're not a good fit, and they're always saying, Jeff, I don't want to do a whole life. I need something that's, I'm kind of late to the game. I haven't saved enough. I haven't invested enough. I'm old enough now where retirement is ticking. What can I do that's going to catch me up?
Right.
There isn't a magic product that can do that.
Nope.
Sure, you could try throwing money at a cryptocurrency or something and hoping you strike it rich. You could go to the casino, see if that hits it for you.
Just gambling.
But at the end of the day, you have to take ownership and say, look, I haven't made enough money over the years. I haven't saved enough money. What are my options? You have to have that hard conversation. Sometimes we have to have hard conversations with clients. I know we've done that a few times. And, it's not a fun conversation to talk to somebody in their 50s and they have zero savings and virtually zero retirement,
Yep.
and they want to retire in 10 or 15 years. Like,
Sad.
do you know how much money you're going to have to drive towards even a 401k to get to $1 million balance? You know, and
Right.
a lot of people don't ever do that math to realize how far that is out, and it just comes back to taking responsibility for what you've created up until this point, good, bad, or indifferent, and deciding if you want to make changes. You've got the complete power to change whatever you want to change, to make your life the way you want it,
Yep.
to increase your income, to put enough money away. You have the power to do that. You can go learn things, you can network, you can, one of my favorite Garrett quotes showed up my Facebook memories a week or two ago, and it was, you're one relationship or one opportunity away from your next level of prosperity.
Absolutely.
That's part of the reason Matt and I are in the Dominican right now, is because we're meeting colleagues, we're meeting people that do what we do, and because we believe not in competition, we believe in cooperation and collaboration, and we know that when we come together, we're better together than we are separate.
Absolutely.
And that's why Matt and I love creating content together, because we're better in ways together than we are independently. We can synergize. And so when you can do that even if you're a W-2 employee or if you're a business owner and you realize you're late to the game, you can meet some people, you can network, you can have a referral partner that throws you business that's your ideal clients, and boom, it could be a game changer for you. You just don't know, and if you come at it from the standpoint of, I'm disempowered, nothing's going to change, I'm screwed, then that's going to be your outcome. But you can change your beliefs, you can change the way that you see your future. And I know that's not like an easy thing to do. It's like when people say let it go. I know earlier in the trip down here, one of the agents down here, we were working, one of the speakers, it's a sales trainer, was talking to this one gentleman about letting go of a particular dynamic he has, and he's like, I don't know how to do that, it's really hard. And so what I'm saying here isn't like, oh, you can just do it, flip a switch, but it is possible. You can find podcasts, you can find professionals, you can find therapists, you can find coaches that can help you make a change so that you are in a position to take advantage of the things that we're talking about on the financial side, but doing so in a way that increases your income so that you're able to take full advantage of whatever strategy resonates with you.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, the process of building wealth is just that. It's a process, all right? And everybody's journey is going to be a little bit different. How you decide to do that is going to be totally different than what I do with mine. But I'll tell you why I'm doing, like I am where I am right now, because of what you said earlier. I took ownership of my life. I took responsibility for everything in my life. For me, almost everything is my fault. If something goes wrong, it's my fault. You start with ownership, responsibility. I'm not going to put my trust in just one financial product, all right? I'm going to start taking ownership here and start putting a plan in place. I'm going to start learning the skills. I'm going to start learning about different things that I can do to become the best version of myself every single day. I'm going to learn something new every single day that's going to move the needle forward in the direction that I want to go, right? And that starts by taking ownership. I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube, YouTube is the biggest university in the world now.
Yeah,
a lot of the stuff that I've learned that has been a game changer in my life when it comes to building wealth, guys. That's one of the reasons I started my channel. Jeff, probably the same for you, is I wanted to share my journey in all of these life-changing things that I've been able to learn and implement. Like, we're not just talking about theory here. We're actually implementing these things in our lives and seeing the actual results. I'm going to be doing a video on this very soon. I'm literally closing on my first private money deal right now. It's pending sale, and the money's going to come back. I'm going to get the interest and all that stuff. Like my first actual real estate deal. But guys, that didn't just come out of nowhere, right? And I didn't see it as like this miracle product or investment that was going to, solve all of my problems. I discovered it as part of the process of putting that plan in place that's going to work for me. Taking ownership of my finances in my life and researching these different things. And I never thought that I would lend money on a real estate deal. But once I started to learn about it, I was like, it clicked. It resonated. I was like, okay, this is absolutely for me. Because a good example of this is there's so many different ways to make money in real estate. There's so many different strategies, right? Which one is right for you? Well, how do you know unless you do the research?
Right.
Maybe real estate is not for you at all. And that is totally fine. But how do you know if you don't research it? If you don't research